speaking of finding a way out, Connor, sometimes it might be appropriate to find our way back in. We, of course, are moving on to our second topic of the day, my first penny of the day. Konami producer says it would be the dream for Kojima to return to Metal Gear. This is coming from VGC Andy Robinson. Konami's Metal Gear series producer has said it would be the dream for the company to work with Hideo Kojima and other development staff again. Noriaki Okamura Okamura made the comment during a Japanese live stream on Friday with the caveat that he wasn't assuming Kojima and his former colleagues would necessarily feel the same way. Kojima split from Konami in 2015 following a mysterious falling out following the conclusion of Metal Gear Solid 5. Conclusion is a strong word. While Kojima still regularly talks about Metal Gear, he no longer has any control over the property. However, it would appear that tension between the pair may have cooled in the years since. Asked if there was any chance of original staff members working on Metal Gear again during Friday's live stream, Konami producer Okamura replied, quote, "It's not my place to answer on behalf of anyone outside the company or to guess how they might feel about it. But just speaking for myself personally, I'd like nothing more than to work with Mr. Kojima and the rest of the team again. If that can happen, it would be the dream. But people have moved on to new things and new commitments, so that's just our current reality. We can't just take for granted that everyone would work with us again or let ourselves be completely dependent on them." He added, quote, "I just don't think it's right for us to be the ones that make that kind of demand of anyone. So we're working with the expectation that whatever we make, it's up to us. It's on our shoulders to do a good job." According to Okamura, many staff from the original Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater development team are already working on the upcoming remake. The main external developer working on the game is Virtuous. Okamura himself was a producer for many Metal Gear spin-off games, including Metal Gear Acid 2, Metal Gear Solid Digital Graphic Novel, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus, and Metal Gear Survive. The best game in there is Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, from what I can tell. Never played it myself. Watched all the cutscenes online. Wasn't impressed. But people like it. In Friday's live stream, the producer went on to claim that, like with the recent Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, Kojima and the original staff will be credited in the upcoming Metal Gear Solid 3 remake in some form. Quote, "Since we had a lot of questions about this, Mr. Kojima and all original development staff are, of course, credited for their original roles. They were already included in the Master Collection, and they'll be listed in Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater as well. They're a part of these games too, so absolutely they're in." Konami has previously stated that Kojima is not involved in the upcoming Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. The game designer currently has a full schedule with Death Stranding 2, Xbox game OD, a new IP with PlayStation, and a Death Stranding movie all in the works. So Connor, I bring you in to ask you, should Kojima work with Konami again, and should Kojima return to Metal Gear?
It'd be nice to see it, but I'm not exactly pro that. Part of that feeds into Death Stranding. I was slightly disappointed when it was 2, because Kojima has such a unique way of making games.
But it looks sick as fuck.
Sure, but it's what else can he do? You know, it was really interesting to see him go into this new realm with his own game company and to do the game that he wanted to do. I just wanted to see more of that, to see which other places he can go to. And so in that same vein, just to go back to the thing that you had made for years and years and years, that there's already a lot of to play, I think is, you're missing out on what else you could do. That said, if you decided to work with Konami again, because I'm assuming they'd have some kind of deal brokered out to where they can work on it, ideally with no, real oversight, no hardline oversight on how the game is made. But that's being hopeful with Konami. I think it's kind of good to let sleeping dogs lie for the most part and move onwards. Especially as it says at the end, he's got so many things already in the work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Elder Scrolls 6 conversation of even thinking about that right now.
Yeah, if he were to when.
Yeah.
He's doing so much already. I'm kind of mostly with you. It's worth noting, there's a couple of things. First of all, I think Konami and Okamura specifically have been saying all the right things when it comes to the Master Collection, when it comes to Delta Remake, and when addressing fans. There was also a note saying that, hey, we're receiving feedback. We read your positive and your negative comments. Most of it has been kind of neutral, but there has been a percentage that have said that, you know, we are aware of the group that says without Kojima we don't want you type thing. We are aware of that. They've addressed that and they know it's happening. So they're trying to do the best they can by the fans here in this moment, and I think that's great. It's also worth noting the CEO of Konami during the whole Metal Gear Solid 5 fiasco has left the company. So might be a better place to work at now, and I think especially because Konami has clearly changed their plans here and moved away from
not being shitty.
What are those machines that they wanted?
Pachinko.
Machines. Moving away from pachinko machines, reopening development in gaming. We're seeing a reignition of Silent Hill, specifically with Silent Hill 2 and a bunch of spin-offs and things, which I have been kind of met with a mixed bag. Master Collection came out pretty solid. Kind of a lazy kind of port, in my opinion, and was dealt with a bunch of like smaller technical issues. But for the most part, the collection works fine, as is. Colosbra.
I was trying in my mind.
Colosbra says, I can't imagine Kojima coming back now that he has a new studio. That's where I'm at with this.
Yeah.
I could see Kojima giving his blessing. I could say Kojima saying or becoming sort of a creative advisor of some kind on a new Metal Gear project of some kind. If that were to happen and he were to say, "Hey, I'm signing off on this. I think this is cool. The direction they're going, I like where they're going," type thing. Regardless of quality of that game that would come out, that would make me as a hardcore Metal Gear Solid fan open to the idea of a Metal Gear game without being made directly by Kojima, being made by somebody else. But if he were to give his blessing, sort of be a creative advisor of some kind, that would make it better. That would make the pill easier to swallow. But of course, without that, I'm not interested in something new from Metal Gear. You can re-release, remaster, collection, remake me to death, and that I think is fine. I don't love it, but it's better than anything else. A Metal Gear Solid 6 or anything Metal Gear Solid related without Kojima at all, without Kojima saying it's cool, I'm not interested at all as a fan. But again, I'm also not interested in a Metal Gear Solid 6 by Hideo Kojima. I'm just not. I think what Kojima's doing with Death Stranding is way more interesting, even though not necessarily as cool, or as good as what he's done with Metal Gear in the past. We will, of course, see the quality of Death Stranding 2 and the lessons learned from the first game in that. But him returning to Metal Gear feels like a step backwards. It feels like, especially because it's been well documented, Kojima has never wanted to make a Metal Gear sequel, ever. Even reaching all the way back to the MSX days with the original game, he never had plans for a Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. It never happened. It wasn't until he found out some American dev studio was given the license to go create it.
Kind of out of spite, he was like,
"Yeah," and then out of spite, he goes, "No, I'm making it," and then he made a better game. Kojima, and then Metal Gear Solid was supposed to be the end of that trilogy, but it became so many people's jumping point, made so much money that he went crazy with MGS2. Again, was supposed to be the last one. Fan backlash put him into the position to where he should make 3. Again, 3 did so well, and then when he tried to pass the reins off to somebody, fan backlash on that, and a bunch of death threats got sent, so he was forced to make MGS4. I think Peace Walker is the only one that he was like, "No, I want to make that."
You can especially see that with 3 because it just decides, we're going to do a flashback now.
Or we're going to go back now. Yeah. We're going to make it right with the fans, even though time has aged Metal Gear Solid 2 gracefully, and so now that those first 3 games feel awesome, or have held up awesomely. So now, after MGS5, what the fuck do we want? I would be moderately interested in a MGS5 Kojima edition where we get the full Act 3 and the full story of that. But again, I don't want that to take up his time when he's busy doing these other things, I would much rather him give us OD and have a survival horror game from Kojima. I'm much more interested in Fizzant, I believe is the name of the little movie game project that he's doing with Universal Studios and PlayStation. I'm much more interested in that. I'm much more interested in Death Stranding 2. I'm interested in anything from Kojima except Metal Gear. That's just where I'm at in 2024 as a Metal Gear Solid fan and as a fan and follower of Hideo Kojima. What would a Metal Gear Solid 6 even be? You know?
I don't know.
Exactly. Like, it's hard to even imagine what that game could or should be. Now, am I opposed to anything Metal Gear ever again? No, of course. If Kojima says, hey, I'm into this, they're going in a creative direction that I like, I'm signing off, I'm handing the reins over. Of course, it would be, it's a breakup. It's an official breakup of this, but it's a much more appeasable one as opposed to where we are in this situation right now. I think Kojima has softened on the position. I think he's found closure with how he left Metal Gear. I think it would be a great sense of closure. I don't know if he would feel this way, but I would feel it's a great sense of closure if he found it himself to be like, hey, I'm good with this. I'm excited to see what they do type thing. You guys should too. But, he's been posting, every anniversary of every game, he posts art and behind the scenes stories and all these things. And he's definitely opened himself back up to the fandom of Metal Gear, which is something we had lost during the Death Stranding 1 days because, it hurt. But yeah, so like we see the conversations happening. I see the path of how that could be there. But again, Metal Gear Solid anything directed by Hideo Kojima, I don't think that should happen.
And honestly, last bit I'll say, it seemed like it kind of did more for Kojima's career with all of that happened and what it led to, as opposed to staying stuck with Konami. It would have been nice to see Silent Hill, and that really could have, shaken things up.
Yeah.
And by what the demo was showing, it was going to. But obviously, that's not what happened. So all in all, best outcome.
And we're gonna get some of those ideas in OD with Xbox, with Jordan Peele and stuff. So we're gonna get some of the ideas that he had for that in this, I'm sure. And it's gonna be even more freeing because it's a new IP, so he can do whatever the hell he wants with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just as a fan, I've moved on. And as much as I love Metal Gear and I want to play all of those old games on new things, I'm cautiously optimistic for Delta Remake. The best solution I can see is just Kojima waving the flag and saying, "We're cool. It's cool. I'm not coming back, but it's cool. I'm down with whatever they want to do."
Yeah.
And then of course I always now until the end of time, much like Stan Lee with Marvel, Kojima's name should be signed on every Metal Gear product